Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions regarding this watch. This watch is a 2022 launch made in 700 pieces in high-intensity titanium to celebrate what was at the time an anniversary for Grand Seiko's spring drive technology. This is the spring drive Chronograph GMT SBGC247. Now the watch has got a lot going on. As you can see, the timepiece is 43.5 millimeters in diameter, 16.6 millimeters thick, 51.1 from lug-to-lug. If we include the end links, then it is 52.2 millimeters across the wrist with the 21 millimeter spacing across the lug horns. That's 21 millimeters right there. And oh, by the way, Grand Seiko is one of the few high luxury brands that believes you will continue to use a strap tool to swap out your bracelets and straps, so they include strap tool holes. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, we're going to zoom out a little bit to get scale. The watch fits me, but I believe if your wrist is any smaller than mine, you're going to want to go with a smaller Grand Seiko watch. It's not as thick as you think it is, because the case back is kind of cupped. You could see that profile. Once it's actually sized down onto your wrist and you close the clasp, it's going to sit lower, so it'll fit underneath just about all jacket cups and even a lot of shirt sleeves. So you can see that the lugs are inboard of the edge of my wrist, but I don't have a whole lot of clearance on either side. Down the barrel, you can see that well. So wrist's my size, 16 centimeters and up. It is very light, however. That's an agreeable quality of titanium. Now you might wonder, what on earth is high-intensity titanium? My understanding is it's functionally equivalent to what's normally called 6.4 or grade 5 titanium. So hypoallergenic and lighter than steel, but unlike grade 2, it's also harder and more scratch resistant than steel. You can see the company's famed Zaratsu tin plate polish. So this is an art and a craft that takes about 3 years to master, and the surfaces to be mirror polished are held against a spinning tin plate on a Zalitz machine, resulting in a mirrored finish very similar to what the Swiss call poly noir, but poly noir is almost never found on really big components and almost never ever found on exterior components of a watch. So we also have a combination of satin and that polish. The bracelet's made of titanium. One of the elements of Grand Seiko bracelets where you might find yourself a little bit frustrated is that they still use pin sleeve arrangements to fix the links in place. And while I can see their argument to avoid stripping out and stranding screws, I still give people the benefit of the doubt and think that it's easier to size a bracelet with a screwdriver. If you want to size this, you'll need a block and punch, which is easy enough to do. You just have to remember to keep them handy. Now you can see we have standard size links, and then also we have the intermediate size links, so you can fine tune the fit. And then we have 4 sets of divots drilled inside the clasp, so you can use your strap tool to change the anchoring point of the bracelet in the clasp. The clasp features a twin trigger release, which I like, and a solid single fold. You can see the clasp body features polish, media blast, and satin brushing. Rolling around the case, you might wonder how water resistant is this case, and I'm glad you asked, because it says on the back 100 meters. Screw down crown and unique screw-down chronograph pushers. They are absolutely singular in design. No one else uses chronograph pusher designs like this. Grand Seiko is nothing if not distinctive. The dial is designed to echo the snowfall and snow drifts in the mountains around Shinshu in the winter. Now, of course, you're familiar with the lion's mane dials and the snowflake dials from Grand Seiko, and this watch is best described as a fusion of the two of them. Features on the dial are printed in blue, which I like because it makes for a nice cheerful contrast, and then dial furniture and dial quality on Grand Seiko dials, along with Rolex, co-equally the best in the business. Rolex achieves that quality by relentless automation. Grand Seiko does it with a lot of hand finishing. So aside from the fact that this dial takes many different steps to create the frame for the date, the logo, the indices, the hands, all of this crafted by people using tiny diamond-tipped micro-milling tools, and this is their full-time gig at Grand Seiko making these parts. Look at the razor-like break between the tops and the side bevels of the hands. You can see the same on the indices. Really impressive stuff. All of this is then placed by hand, and in the case of the indices, caulked by hand. We've got a power reserve indicator for the automatic winding spring drive, 72 hours of power reserve. You can also see that the seconds hand glides smoothly. Both of them do. The idea here is that with spring drive, you've got this unidirectional governing wheel that is turned only by a mainspring. So there's no motors, there's no batteries, it's not powered by capacitors. That governing wheel rotates through a magnetic field, and electrons in the metal going through the magnetic field creates an induced electrical current, wakes up a quartz oscillator. The oscillator then applies magnetic force back to the wheel to slow it down and regulate its rotation. On the other side, one side, remember, is geared from the barrel. The other side of that wheel is then geared to the hands. So the energy from the mainspring is the only thing that's driving the hands. Again, there's no motors or batteries in this watch. So you get quartz precision, but you also get mechanical soul as this watch is assembled, regulated, and when the time comes, serviced and returned to you by a watchmaker, not a machine. Also important, this is the 9R96, which is sort of a hot rod spring drive. From back in 2022, this was a plus or minus 1/2 second per day, which somehow works out to about 10 seconds a month, whereas standard spring drive is about 15 seconds a month. And so that little gold vintage lion medallion on the rotor tips you off to the fact that this is, of course, the 9R96, which is very special. If you're ever wondering what's in my Grand Seiko, you can always see right on the base of the dial, 9R96, that's where they list the movement. You can also see this is individually numbered, 288 to 700, 50 joules. What's fascinating is that although the spring drive mechanism is a hybrid of electronic and mechanical, the chronograph is purely mechanical. You can see that there's a column wheel. I'll unscrew this little chronograph pusher here. The column wheel makes for a very crisp and positive operation. The vertical clutch engagement, which is also purely mechanical, is seamless with no jump or stagger or extraneous movement and no additional wear and tear, so you can leave the mechanism running full time. Grand Seiko nicely aligns the chronograph minutes and hours off to the side. The watch does feature another subsidiary setting mode, which is hacking seconds. Pull the crown, everything stops. Now you can set it to a reference time. But this is also a GMT, which means we have the ability to move that local hour hand independently while everything continues running. The minutes and the seconds, even the chronograph, are undisturbed. Now you can see how I can drive the date forward or backwards depending on which way I'm traveling across the international date line. And when I go back into setting mode now, I can set everything in sync. You've got that 24-hour hand that makes one circuit of the dial per day. Remember, it's the local 12-hour hand that drives the date. So there is a lot to love about this watch. It is chock-a-block with features and distinctive technologies. Although Piaget has tried and ETA has dabbled, spring drive remains a unique Grand Seiko mechanical engineering and electrical engineering tradition, which makes this watch all the more special. If you love it, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.